Hawkeyes escaped week 1 against a lowly FCS opponent without really a scrape. Iowa will move on to a big boy matchup against Iowa State in the annual Cy-Hawk game this Saturday in Jack Trice Stadium. I'll be coming out with my official preview on Wednesday, so stay tuned in here to From the Hawkeye of the Storm. Keep it locked right here. In the meantime, please hit the like button on this video because we're going to run through my week 1 position grades for Iowa's performance against Albany. And of course, this has a lot to do with where I see Iowa in week 2. And again, I'll come out with my preview tomorrow, but we'll go through my grades now. Before we get to that content, I want to thank our sponsor down in Bondurant, Iowa Floor Covering. If you've got a DIY flooring project on your hands or you're considering one, be sure you call them first, 515-379-7000. Ask for Tyler, Ryan, or Brian down at Iowa Floor Covering. Again, iowafloorcovering.com or call them at 515-379-7000. So we're talking about Iowa football's week 1 grades. I'm running through every position. Well, I shouldn't say every position, every main position. We're going to kind of consolidate a couple, like we're not going to run through cornerback versus cash versus safety. We're going to go quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, O-line, D-line, linebacker, and DB. So let's get right down to it. You get the drill here, and if you don't now, you'll get it in a second. We'll start at quarterback. That's Mark Gronowski, really the only guy we're grading, although Hank Brown did get some reps late in the game. He was only asked to throw the ball once. He did have a fumble. He was credited, I should say, with a fumble. It was the one turnover Iowa lost in this game. I've got to give quarterback a D+. Now, I could have gone a couple different directions on this. I think some people are being more forgiving to Mark Gronowski and giving him the grace that he probably deserves. Had one bad quarter. Iowa didn't ask him to do much the rest of the game, but I'm grading based on what I saw. And the fact of the matter is, it wasn't his fault he didn't get more throws, or you could argue maybe it was his fault he didn't get more passes as the game progressed. But based on what I saw in the first quarter, it was not good. 8 of 15, 44 yards total for the game, 1 touchdown through the air. He did run the ball pretty effectively as a quarterback, 11 different rushes for Mark Gronowski, 47 yards on the ground and a touchdown. He will play better week 2, but I'm giving Mark Gronowski quarterback position a D+. And yes, the Hank Brown fumble does count. It does count towards my quarterback grade. Running back, pretty much the exact opposite, A+. I mean, I have a hard time picking apart anything that the running backs did as bad. There were no fumbles in this game. They ran for 274 yards as a group, as a unit, on 39 carries. That's good for 7 yards per rush. And that was without Kamari Moulton most of the game. They were phenomenal. Now, part of that is the offensive line, which we're going to get to here in a little bit. But if they play that way against Iowa State, it's going to be hard for Iowa State to slow down the run game as well. Wide receiver. This was a tough one because I don't have actual game film to see how often Iowa's receivers were getting open. You know, you hear these different people making comments since the game Saturday. Well, receivers were open. No, they weren't open. I mean, I think it's clear that Mark Gronowski missed some guys. I also think it's safe to say that Iowa's probably getting more separation collectively as a unit than they had been in the last 5 to 6 years. And that's not just because we're in year 2 of a new system, but Iowa's receiver play was really porous under the leadership of Brian Ferentz and Kelton Copeland, just calling a spade there, at least in my opinion. I'm giving the receivers a C because several different guys caught balls, but nobody had 20 yards receiving. Not one guy 20 yards receiving. And I had predicted heading into the game against Albany that Iowa would have at least one receiver with 100-plus yards. They didn't have a single receiver at 20-plus yards. Mark Gronowski was at fault for a lot of that, and the run game was humming, so they didn't need to utilize receivers in the passing game nearly as much. They're, of course, a factor in being able to run the ball effectively, and I would say without picking apart every little bit of tape out there, the 300-plus yards rushing for Iowa as a team is probably an indication that everybody blocked pretty well for the ground game. Speaking of the ground game and blocking, tight ends get a B-. All 3 of Iowa's main tight ends, their seasoned, experienced tight ends, got a catch in this game, but nothing more. They did create good space, as did Iowa's tackles on the inside of that offensive line. So the tight ends did their job blocking as well. So although they didn't give you a lot of volume in the passing game, they will have better days. The unit gets a B-. Offensive line, I'm giving the offensive line an A-. So I gave running back an A+. I thought the offensive line was really good blocking for Iowa's backs. Pass protection was pretty good. I think there's room for improvement, certainly. I'm not sure the offensive line could have blocked much better for the ground game. But there were some quarterback hurries. Gronowski had, one sack in this game. The offensive line allowed one sack, one quarterback hurry, 3 tackles for loss. So there's room for improvement there. So I'm not going to give them an A+. I will give them an A-. Defensive line. Iowa's defense was credited with 2 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 1 quarterback hurry. They sent more pressure in that second half, Phil Parker did. And so linebackers assisted with some of that pressure. But I'm going to give the defensive line as a whole a B. I thought they'd be more dominant, especially early with a 4-man front, 4-man rush. They were not. How much of that was Iowa just kind of playing it cool, testing the waters early? They sent more extra bodies as the game went on, and that assisted the D-line. But I think the jury is still out on that defensive line. I think the talent is there for that line to be elite and dominant. I did not see that against Albany, but they were solid, didn't allow Albany to do much of anything on the ground, and they did have a couple of sacks. Linebackers getting a B. I mean, you got a few tackles for Jaden Harrell, a few tackles for Carson Shire, a couple for Jackson Rexroth, one for Jaden Montgomery. Go down the list of the box score. Didn't allow anything egregious. As a whole, the defense played well. You're going to see that consistent with all of my defensive positions, hovering around that B grade, that B medium grade. And that's the same for defensive back. I'm giving them a B- because they did get hit a couple of times. I thought that quarterback for the Great Danes was pretty solid. A guy who has played some earlier in his career, but boy, this is a big stage for him to step into as the starting quarterback. And I thought he played well. Improvement still possible for Deshaun Lee, for TJ Hall. Jalen Watson played extensively. I thought Iowa safeties were good as expected. Zach Lutmer kind of went unnoticed. It was a pretty quiet day there. But in general, once they got settled in, that one touchdown was scored by Albany in that second quarter. That was basically it. Iowa, of course, scored the rest of the points from there on out. How many straight points would it be? 31 straight points from there forward. And a big part of that was Iowa collectively across the board on defense, limiting Albany. So defensive line B, linebacker B, defensive back B-. So more of a mixed bag for the offense, but still more to prove for the Iowa defense. And that will lead us into our preview coming up on Wednesday right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, where we break down Cy-Hawk Week. What a big game this is in Jack Trice this Saturday. Folks, hit that thumbs up button. Thank you for being here. Be sure you support our sponsors. I'll be there at Jack Trice on Saturday. Please say hi if you're there. If you're tailgating, hit me up, say hi. And hopefully we'll talk to you Saturday following a big win right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm.